Hey everyone, the name is Eric and this is Forest for Thought, and on this channel we'll talk about differences, neurodivergence, and all the different ways that the brain can develop. Because ultimately, well, we use labels like giftedness and ADHD and ADD. These are just umbrella terms covering patterns in the brain and how the brain tends to develop. And ultimately, every single person has a unique brain, including you, right? Okay, so first of all, what is giftedness and how does it relate to ADHD and what does it mean to be twice exceptional? Giftedness, I feel, can be characterized as a higher level of intelligence. And the truth is, you don't have to be a lot more intelligent than the average to be considered potentially gifted, right? Even a small statistical deviation for like above 110 or 115 might already set you apart from your peers, especially early in age. Yes, giftedness plays a bigger impact when the brain is in the development. And often what we see here is that when kids are gifted, they learn and solve problems in school faster. They are quicker to grow up, they have a more extensive vocabulary, they read faster, they learn faster, and they are better at solving different tasks. And that's the norm, this is the average that we see. And this does not consider the fact that they might also have ADHD. Okay, so with ADHD, often what we talk about is an asynchronous form of development. Asynchronous does not mean better or worse, it just means that certain parts of your brain developed better than others. And that means that often people with ADHD, they tend to struggle with what we call executive functioning, right? And so while people with ADHD might be very quick learners and might take in information very quickly and might be able to switch between different topics and activities quickly, they might struggle with regulating their own energy and motivation and attention. And to some extent, even people with giftedness can struggle with this to an extent. And only if your struggles keep you from excelling in school and dealing with normal tasks and causes you major problems in life do we tend to call it the diagnosis ADHD. So ADHD has to come with some level of drawbacks in life. It has to cause you issues in your relationships, in dealing with other people, and in taking and managing tasks at work or in school, right? On top of that, ADHD is something that we can grow out of as we grow older, as the brain starts to balance itself with age. And sometimes it grows out and sometimes it doesn't, right? Now, okay, when it comes to giftedness, people often assume that gifted means better, right? Well, I would consider it like this. When you're gifted, you're more likely to roll a higher number on the dice, but you're still possibly likely to roll an average number, right? So giftedness is more like an early age advantage, and it's up to you what you do with that. And that means that typically, if you want to be successful and if you want to excel in life, you're going to have to study, work hard, just like everyone else. And gifted people, in general, do need that. And so a lot of people with giftedness find it hard to regulate and manage their own attention, just like people with ADHD. And in the case of twice exceptionals, yeah, you can actually be both. And it's said that around 50% of all people who are gifted tend to be twice exceptional and often have ADHD. So this is not a small group of people. This is a group of people that we can talk about as people who tend to daydream a lot, often look outside the window instead of focusing in class. These are people that struggle to stay on topic, that often switch between different tasks. We can talk about it as people that, they'd like to finish the homework, they'd like to do that thing, they'd like to hand in that task, but it's so boring. Like, why should I do it? Why does it matter, right? And on top of that, gifted people are more likely to question teachers and adults, and often adults tend to think that when kids express their own personal will, that's a sign of disobedience, and that's something that we need to prevent, right? So we want kids to be obedient, and we believe that obedient kids are the most successful and the most well-adjusted. But often we see in statistics that the kids that have the strongest willpower, the kids that stand up for themselves, the kids that speak out and ask questions tend to be more successful later in life, right? So this is a challenge that gifted people can face. And the biggest issue is an issue of motivation, right? If a gifted person is raised and developed and assumed to develop at the same pace as another kid the same age, this gifted kid is not going to be motivated. We know today that motivation comes with relative level of challenge. And so if a person wants to feel motivated, we have to equally challenge them at their current level, right? So if we challenge a person too much, well, that person is going to give up. But if we challenge them too little, well, once again, they're going to give up. They're not going to pay attention. They're going to get bored, right? So that's often the struggle of being gifted in school, is you find yourself in this state where people will refuse to give you extra homework, get extra assignments, and will refuse to allow you to progress because you're expected to hand in the task, do the assignment that everyone else is doing. And to many adults, many teachers, they simply don't have the resources or time to help you as a gifted person. And you need help as a gifted person because as a kid, you don't know how to manage your own energy and activities. You don't know how to self-study. You don't know how to give yourself new quests and to motivate yourself. Often, people never learn this, and it's not something that's even being taught. As a kid in school, I was never really diagnosed as gifted, but I was allowed to skip a grade and I was allowed to get extracurricular tasks. And I had to fight for this. I had to actively sit with my teachers and tell them I want to get this extra assignment. I want to progress faster. I want this to happen more. And every time I asked, they said, but why are you in such a rush? Why not just enjoy it? Why not just sit back in class and relax? You know, and I always felt, I feel like I want to get to the next level. I'm curious. I want to learn. I want to do more. I want to, you know, and I was never given that chance. So for me, I had to learn to self-study. So because they often parked it or didn't allow me to progress, I had to pick up extracurricular interests and hobbies. And what ended up happening was I had maybe D's in every single subject. And I did only the bare necessities to pass the class. And on my free time, I was reading a lot of advanced literature. I was really interested in philosophy. I studied a lot of psychology, and I spent a lot of time learning things. And I was also very engaged in different nonprofit work and different communities around the city because I was really engaged and really curious and wanted to learn. So many kids have to learn to self-study to actually learn to cope when the school is not adequately prepared for gifted people. Other gifted people never learn this and find themselves in this spiral where it's like you just slow down, you just get more and more lazy, you just stop caring, you just don't really put in any energy and effort. And often when that happens, you end up in a state of autopilot, right? So if you don't challenge yourself consistently over time, your brain gets bored and you just stop doing things, you stop caring. And it can lead to kind of detachment or issues with depression or other struggles. So it's very important to take this very seriously. Now, when we talk about ADHD, what we talk about is typically asynchronous development, right? So what that means is you're not better or worse. It just means that certain parts of the brain that are more developed than other parts of the brain, right? And typically people with ADHD tend to have relative to their executive function. Their executive function is not capable of keeping up with the part of their brain that is used for learning and taking in new information and for thinking of new things and being creative, right? So here what we can see is, people with ADHD, they simply come up with so many ideas and so many things they want to do and so many interesting things they want to learn about, and they get in so much information that the executive function simply cannot keep up. It can't organize all this information. It can't make decisions. It can't regulate it. So what ends up happening is there is a form of overwhelm here. And like I said earlier, 50% of all gifted people are said to also have some form of ADHD, right? So it's quite a big comorbidity here. And what might be happening is when a person is more gifted, is more intelligent, they're more likely to have a form of asynchronous development. And asynchronous development is more easily noticed, right? Okay, so with ADHD, you can see ADHD, for example, struggles with working memory, which can be, you want to go out, you want to take out the trash, you want to post a letter, and then you want to go buy some groceries. So you go out, you forget the trash, you forget the letter, and you don't get any groceries. That's often the case of an extreme stereotype, but what I really want to convey here is it can be that, for example, your working memory is refreshing too quickly. So when you go out, you see some shiny object, or as on the way out, you get a call from a friend and you see a text message or something else happens and your attention is hijacked and you don't really recognize these kind of patterns. So it's really about, being able to stay focused and disciplined when working through a task and to be able to work through it in a linear order, right? So often people with ADHD tend to pursue tasks in a non-linear manner, and they are more likely to quickly refresh and let go of tasks and replace it with new ones, right? So yes, I would like to go and do the dishes, but also on the way there, I see that, there is another thing, doing the dishes is not just doing the dishes. It's first I have to take out other dishes that were in there already. And then, I have to clean this thing that I see here. And that surface has to be organized and that cabinet is not in the right place. And here, when you have executive function helps you with all of these things. It says to you, first, start with taking out and emptying the dishwasher. Second, once you've done that, you can put in the dirty dishes in the dishwasher, right? Like it really helps you work through these things. And you have these people, with an overdeveloped executive function, right? And they are very, very interesting people, right? Because they are usually people that, can sit with a task for hours without losing focus. Like they are people that can really steel themselves on something, right? And high executive function can be something a skilled athlete uses to practice, exercise daily, and to push through a task, even if their blood is burning and, their muscles are dying, they can just push through something, right? Or it can be that, you're a chess player, you've spent 10 hours playing one game, and you're still thinking, you're still attentive, you're still engaged, and you're still trying to move the pieces out, right? So these are like super important skills, and they're certainly a part of a skilled brain, right? So with asynchronous development, it really is this, that your executive function doesn't have to be actually bad. It's just relatively worse than your attention, right? So with ADHD, you're just more in the part of your brain that takes in and manages and goes through attention and new information is just more fast-paced. It's so focused on that new thread or topic in the conversation, or that new idea that just came up in your head, or that new thing you were going to do, that it just forgets about other things. And when your executive function is overloaded, that's the problem, right? So often we have a challenge for ourselves to kind of find ways to balance our brain, or if we're not able to do that, to develop tools and strategies that can help us with these things, right? Like as the example of taking out the trash, like I know a friend of mine has this system where with pinchers, like with notes and with different cards, and different cards have different tasks. So she puts them all on her, right? So she can always see them visually. And whenever she's done with something, she takes it off her sweater and she hangs it up. And so that way it's always hanging there, she can never forget it, and she knows it's there, right? And this is a really smart way of really learning to use your environment and tools to manage your attention and help you with all these things, right? Okay, so what does it mean to be twice exceptional? Well, twice exceptional means that you're both going to be high in giftedness, so higher than average in intelligence, and also that you're going to have some form of neurodivergence. In this case, it would be ADHD, right? So some things you might see in that case is, well, first you might see that, you are very quick in learning, you are very quick taking in information, but you're also easily overwhelmed. You struggle to focus in conversations, you have so many different threads you see yourself going down, you have so many different things you want to do, and you solve problems quickly, but at the same time, you struggle to focus on problems. So often you give up quickly if it takes too long, or if it's not engaging or not interesting, you simply won't do it, right? So what you can see is this, well, you're going to show both the things that I talked about in giftedness and also the things that I talked about with ADHD at the same time. So that's giftedness, then that's ADHD. Are you gifted, or do you have ADHD, or have you talked to a psychologist about these things, right? Because most importantly, if you suspect that you have giftedness or ADHD, The best thing you can do is talk to a psychologist, talk to somebody that's trained in these topics, and ask them to help you take an assessment and learn more about yourself. It can only help you to know more about yourself, and if you find a good, trained, qualified psychologist, this can really help boost your performance and help you manage your own attention, energy, and intelligence.